Zoe here from Learning Boosters, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. So, just to let you know that I am a tutor of hello, everybody, and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. I'm Zoe, and my business is Learning Boosters. I'm a #1 Amazon selling author of Learning Boosters for Children with Learning Difficulties. And I tutor in maths, English, and music. So today's live Wisdom Wednesday, if you happen to have some questions, please pop them in the comments box below and I'll answer those for you. But today's live Wisdom Wednesday is about learning from home. So in this current climate, there's a lot of people out there who are not only being a parent, they are also being a teacher, they're trying to work from home, and all of that compounds everything. So today I'm going to talk about a few things, and one of them is how you can support your child. The next one is setting up a learning environment, which is really important, particularly from home. Establishing routines and expectations, which coincide with communication and communicating with your child, and a little bit of advice for parents with disability and additional needs, because a lot of the students I work with, kids have disabilities or those additional needs. So, how can you support your child? So you can support them by having a routine and setting up some expectations. You can make sure your child has a space to work in, so that space is the same space every day, like we do. We go to an office, or we have an office or a little area in our houses where we use it as an office. So a child needs that too. They need a place they go to do their work. Setting up a routine and setting up expectations is really important, so that you're both on the same page as to what the child is expected to do, what the child expects from you, and those sorts of things. So there's none of those communications of you put the work down in front of your child and they pout and they go, I'm not doing it. The expectations are already there, okay? So the work is already set up on their desk. They can have a choice of two different things. So a maths thing or an English thing. This is sit-down work, by the way, not physical work. That can come into part of the routine as well. So they have a choice. They know the expectation is that they know they have to do both work. So they have to do both the maths and the English, but they get to choose which one they want to do first. So you've set that up with communications, the expectations have been set up, the child knows they have to do those two pieces of work to get some sort of reward, okay? Now the reward might be colouring in for 10 minutes. The reward might be sitting watching something online for 10 minutes. So it's not necessarily food related, okay? So yeah, those expectations are already in place. The work's already there in front of them. They get to choose. If they choose the maths first, they do the maths part, then they can get up and have a bit of a move around, and then they go back and they do the English part, and then they get the reward. Okay, so the reward happens at the end of the work, like we do. We go to work, we do our work, our reward is getting paid for it. Okay, apart from the other little rewards that come up during the day that we get from actually doing a job. So that's routine, and that's setting expectations. Making sure your child has a space to work, I've already touched on that. So like us, as I said, we need that space to work as well, and we're just setting our child up with an area. Doesn't have to be huge. Providing a level of supervision suitable to your child's age and stage of development and individual needs. So what do I mean by that? I know as a parent, it's really difficult to be a parent, to be teaching them something or trying to supervise them doing something and to be working your own work from home. So providing a level of supervision might be your child is fairly independent learner, in which case you can put that work down on their desk and leave them to do it. And say, you know, you've got 45 minutes or half an hour to do your maths, put the timer on. Come back in half an hour saying, well done, give them lots of reward through praise. So tell them what they've done really, really well. Don't tell them about those things they haven't done so well. Okay, the teacher can pick up on that. Okay, so then you say to them, great, have a bit of a wriggle, go outside and run around the block and touch something that's green, something that's blue, something that's red, and then come back in. And then they know they have to do the English. Set the timer again. So that's the kind of supervision I'm talking about. Or if your child is a little one and they need a lot more supervision, then putting time out in your day, in your working day, to be able to supervise them more intently in the way that they need it. You as a parent know best in that situation when you're at home what's going to work best for your child. So individual needs. So again, you know individually what's best for your child. So does your teacher most of the time at school. So individual needs might be, you know, how long can they concentrate for? Can they only concentrate for 15 minutes? In which case, put the timer on for 15 minutes. Can they only concentrate, you know, for 45 minutes? In which case, are they going to get their maths and English done in one sitting? Okay, so it has to do with those individual needs. And each child is going to be different. So if you've got 2 or 3 kids, then that's going to need quite a bit of preparation and setting up and supervision perhaps. Monitoring the communications from teachers during this time. So if your teacher is hopefully having a Zoom session with your child at least once a fortnight, I would suggest. If that's not happening, perhaps you need to contact school and just say, you know, what are the communication things that are meant to be happening between me and the teacher, or the child and the teacher during this time. So you need to monitor those communications as well for obvious reasons. You know, they could be talking to anyone online, for instance. So it's just as a safety precaution for them, for the child. Checking in with your child often to help them manage and pace their work. So as an adult, we're able to have the skills more able to self-pace and to work out, okay, that's not working right now. I just can't do that. I can't get my head around that. We'll have a break from that and I'll do this instead, and I'll come back to that. So, yeah, just checking in with your child. Again, a communication thing. Monitoring how much time your child is spending online. Now, it might be that all of their schoolwork is online, but you're still monitoring that, you know, so they might not be doing pen and paper stuff. Their maths might be on Mathletics or, you know, one of those platforms, in which case you need to be monitoring that. Be just a little bit aware of how long they're actually on there and what they're doing. So that's some support mechanisms that you can put in place with your child on how you can support them and have an understanding. So mainly it's communication, and in that communication you're setting up the expectations. Okay, so the expectations today are that I expect you to do this, this and this. Your teacher expects you to do this, this and this. So that's our project for the day. Making sure your child has a workspace, providing a level of supervision suitable for your child's stage of development and individual needs, monitoring their communications with teachers and from teachers, checking in with your child often to help them manage and pace their work. That's a big thing for kids to learn how to do. Monitoring how much time your child is spending online. So the second part of this live Wisdom Wednesday is setting up the learning environment. So every home is different, but it's still important to provide a quiet and comfortable space in which your child can learn. Now, some kids need a desk and a chair and nothing on the desk and the chair except their computer, if that's what they're learning, what they're using to do the work on, or their pen and paper stuff. and no other distractions because they're easily distracted. So we set them up in a way that we know, in an environment we know they're going to win in. Okay? Some children might be quite happy just sitting in a beanbag with their computer doing it because that's how they stay relaxed and they learn easier that way. So as I said, every home is different. Where possible, extended learning should take place in a space your family shares. Now, why am I saying that? Only because if you're able to be at one desk doing your work and they're able to be at their desk doing another lot of work, that gives them the idea and know that you're working, oh, I should be working too. So that helps prompt them just a little bit more and makes them a little bit more accountable and enables them to manage their pace of work. So, for example, in a lounge room or a dining room, these spaces are preferable over a bedroom. Too many distractions in a bedroom, a child can just sit on the bed and play with their toys or play a game on their computer instead of doing what they're meant to be doing. So where your child feels connected. So a bedroom is an isolated place and it's harder to supervise them in that area. So it becomes challenging in that area because there are so many distractions, because they're isolated. They're not seeing you doing work, so they want to emulate what you're actually doing and think, oh, mum's doing some work or dad's doing some work, I'll do some work too. So make sure it's a place that that can have quiet times as well. There's not millions of other things, you know, kids running, little ones running around or animals running around and all that sort of thing. Nice quiet area. Having said that, there are some kids that actually work better with a little bit of music or something, distraction, not distraction so much, but a little bit of white noise happening in the background for them. So again, you know how your child fits best into into your environment at home. Also, of course, at the moment, it's really important to have a strong internet signal, if possible, if you're using internet, for the obvious reasons. You know, when you're on your computer doing your work, is there enough internet strength for your other 2 children or 3 children to be doing their work online? Or does one of them need to be doing some pen and paper stuff or some phys ed stuff outside while the other one is on using the computer, and then swap over, something like that? Where you or another adult is present, as you would normally when your child is at home, they need to have an adult present, basically, is what I'm saying, depending on their age, of course. Of course, if they're in college, you would hope that they would be able to organise and manage themselves pretty much. You can still have those expectations in place of, you know, when I get home, I'd like to have a look at what we eat today, you know, or whatever it is. The wording is, of course, individual to your child. So that's setting up the learning environment. So make sure it's a place where your child doesn't feel isolated, where you can supervise them easily, where it's quiet and they're comfortable, just like we need when we're working from home or when we're working. Now, establishing routines and expectations. I touched on this a little while ago in the first part of this live. So start each day and end each day with a check-in with your child. So it's a check-in to help your child. It's not a check-in to, you know, what have you done today? Why didn't you do that? Those sorts of things. But it's a check-in to help them. And if you're in the frame of mind of helping them, you can see what their progress and what their pace is like automatically without having to ask those confrontational questions of, you know, why haven't you done this, or this is what I expect today. So to do that, clarify and understand the instructions that they have been left by their teachers, and make sure that the child clarifies and understands them as well. So if their teacher has said, okay, today I'd like you to do the section on fractions on mathletics, it'll take you 15 minutes. Reiterate that to your child, get them to speak that back to you so that the understanding is actually there. so that later on, when you check up with them later on in the day and they haven't done that, they're not saying, oh, I didn't know I needed to do that. Okay, you can also write it down on paper what the expectations are of their day as well. So help them to organise themselves and set priorities for their learning from home. So organising themselves, as I said earlier, they've got a nice space where they feel comfortable, they're not isolated. It's easy for you to actually supervise them whilst you're doing some work as well. So it's in the same sort of area. It can be a lounge, dining room area. They can be in the dining room. You could be in the lounge. You don't have to be right near each other. So help them to organise themselves. So the work needs to be there, placed on the table so the night before, set the work up for the next day, just like we do when we work from home or work from, our workplaces. A healthy daily routine is great for the mental and physical health, okay? So as well as concentrating and learning, of course, too. So that routine, we're creatures of habit, aren't we, most of the time? So our children need that sort of kind of routine where it's, oh, that's right, it's 9 o'clock, I've got to go to my desk and I have to do this, this and this today. Whether you write it down on a sheet of paper and they tick it off, that can be a reward also, or even have a little animal stamp or something and they can stamp it on there and they can actually see what it is they've done during the day. That's a sense of reward as well. Encourage regular exercise breaks. So after they've done, 2 half-hour sessions, 2 45-minute sessions, depending on the age of the child, get them to go outside and just wander around. If you've got a pet, even better. Go with your child and go for a short 15-minute walk, something like that. So regular exercise breaks, really important for us as adults, really important for kids as well. You can also use, of course, as well as taking the dog for a walk or something like that, you can use exercise DVDs. That's another thing, or an app. You can dance, get a song going and dance, floor exercises, using your home exercise equipment. If you've got some at home, just doing a quick 10 or 15-minute routine on that even. The other thing, of course, is to encourage eating, healthy eating habits. Make sure they drink enough water and lots of brain foods. So fruits and vegetables, of course, but then you've got your proteins, which are really, really good for brain fuel. The oils in fish is fantastic. The omega-3 it is in fish is fantastic for brain, feeding your brain. So the last thing I'd like to chat with you about and give you some support on is communicating with your child. So I'd encourage you to do that simple check-in at the beginning and finishing of each day. That's a good way of communicating. See what worked for your child during the day, what didn't. Tweak some things. Say to them, what worked for you today, what didn't work for you today. Ask open-ended questions. Don't give them the solutions. Even little ones can come up with solutions. Oh, I didn't do very well today because I kept looking at this, that, or the other, or my desk just didn't feel like it was in the right place. So they can help you find the solutions, and then you actually help them to execute those solutions so that they feel better in the spot that they're actually working in. Just as a for instance. So in the morning, you can ask, what are we learning today? That's an open-ended question. What are your learning? What do you want to do? What are your learning targets or goals? You might have to explain what targets and goals are a little bit. So what have we actually got on our list today that we need to get done today? How will you be spending your time? A really good question to ask. How will you be spending your time? This is what I'm going to be doing while you're working. What are you going to do while I'm working? Okay, open-ended question again. They need to provide the solutions. You as the parent are there for support, not necessarily giving them all of the solutions. If they say, oh, I don't know, well, let's have a look at your list. What's it got on here? So this is what you're probably spending your time doing today, don't you think? okay? What resources do you need? So what do they need to be able to complete that work? And what support do they need? What would they like from you as a parent? I mean, they probably like you to sit there the whole time while they're working and you just sit there. But that's not going to work, particularly if you're working from home yourself. It's always good to be doing something else when your child is doing something else, because that gets them to self-regulate. So there's some morning questions you can ask. Make sure, as I said, they're open-ended and they need to find solutions for them. You can guide their solutions, but don't give them the answers all the time. Well, this is what I think you should be doing. Allow them time to think it through for themselves and find the solutions, because it's more likely to happen that way. In the afternoon, with your afternoon check-in, so these are the kinds of things that questions to allow your child to think about. So process the instructions they get from their teachers. So the processing the instructions might be for the next day, for instance. So this might be part of the afternoon check-ins. Help them organise themselves and set priorities for the next day. And if you can, you need to also, of course, check in with your child throughout the day. Right? This, of course, depends on your child's needs, which you as a parent knows above all, particularly in the home environment. Okay, so what have we done? What have we talked about so far? So I've talked about how you can support your child, so that routine, setting up, those sorts of things, setting up the learning environment, establishing some routines and expectations, communicating with your child. And the last thing I'd just like to touch on is a little bit of advice for parents who have children with disability or those additional needs. So you know your child best, and you know how much you can do in one day. So it might be that you only get a couple of schooling things done in the day. That's okay. No one is expecting you, or I don't believe personally, being a teacher myself, I wouldn't expect you to be getting through absolutely everything every day, because the environment is quite different. Some kids don't really like to take direction from their parents, or will sulk and think they're going to be able to get out of it if they put on a little bit of performance, for instance. So you know your child best. So as a parent, parents and carers of children with disability and additional needs, you're already really skilled in understanding and supporting and caring for your child. You know what they're capable of. You know what you're capable of in that day. So if it's just one thing, that's fine. It's better than nothing. Your child's school will probably have, it doesn't matter whether your child has a disability or additional needs or not, your school should have put in place a developmental learning program for all of the learners out there. And that includes these children with disability or additional needs. So the learning activities that have been provided by your school will reflect their stage of the learning and goals for the child. So you're looking at your IEP, which is your individual education plan. So where appropriate, do what you can. Your child, obviously has a range of strengths and abilities that they all bring to their own learning program and their learning journey. And while some of the suggestions I've said in what I've talked about above will be applicable for your child and the home setting, greater support is required for some learning activities, particularly for children with additional needs. So consider your child's needs when you're setting up a routine with them, and discuss those needs with your classroom teacher. Now remember, even if you are teaching them from home, you're not alone, okay? The resource of your teacher is still there. You can still contact them. You can still talk through, this is the frustrations, can you give me some guidance on this? Or, we're doing this at the moment, is that enough? They are there to help and guide you, so please contact your school, contact the teacher. That's their job, that's what they're there to do. So discuss with your classroom teacher when to undertake certain learning activities, particularly for a child that has a disability or special needs. How long your child may be expected to spend on a task. So these are some of the questions that you can ask your teacher. Use a timer on your phone or your iPad or even your oven if you have to help schedule appropriate amounts of time for the child to spend on each task. And then there's no arguments. When the timer goes off, that's it, you've done that. Okay, so again, it's getting back to communicating and the expectations. Or use a chart to record the progress of the day's learning and activities. And that's where kids that like, little stars or little stickers or an animal stamp, they can see the reward. So that's a praise and a reward for them. So that's rather a big, long session today. So this is being recorded. So I'm saying to you that if you need to come back to this, there's some things you didn't quite pick up, please do. The other thing is that I'm offering a free 15-minute phone call to anybody who is having some issues at the moment with teaching their children at home, motivation, communication, how can I support them, what can I do? I'm getting a free 15-minute phone conversation with you. Please go to my Facebook website and fill out the contact form in there, and I will get in touch with you and we'll line up a time when we can both get online. Sometimes it just helps to offload some of those frustrations and get one or two things that you can try out and see if that helps. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. So I think it's the 3rd of June, so it's the first Wednesday in the month, and I look forward to spending some time with you then. Please contact me if I can help. See you then. Bye.